This is the second film in a series designed to promote safe working practices at the roadside by the vehicle recovery industry. As the Minister responsible for road safety, I'm particularly keen to see safe working practices in this environment because I do know they have a very significant impact on accidents. I think we should match the same high standards of equipment to the high standards of professional behaviour that we need if we're going to get this right. And may I say, I think the public has a right to expect the same standards of professionalism from the recovery industry as they expect from the other organisations with which they come into contact. This film illustrates very graphically what best practice is, and I believe it's something that everyone involved in the industry should follow. I commend it very strongly to you.
I'll get the trolley jack and wheel brace, and then I'll come back and change the wheel for you.
Right, cheers.
Life on the edge is dangerous, but there's no need to make it any more dangerous than it has to be. Now, this program is aimed at helping you to work more safely and more efficiently. No matter how experienced you are, you've always got something new to learn. And remember, you can't work too safely. Now, Superintendent Dennis Morgan, you're responsible for some of the busiest motorway in Britain. How important to you is it that recovery operators work responsibly and safely?
Well, like the other two emergency services, my officers receive specialist training before they go out to do their job and patrol the motorways. The recovery industry provides a valuable service to the motoring public, and therefore it's essential that their standards of training, equipment and behaviour are of the highest order. This video is part of an ongoing programme in trying to help operators achieve that standard.
Superintendent Morgan, thanks very much indeed. Of course, this programme can't replace a full training course, but we can point out some of the dangers. Dangers with spectacle lifts. Dangers with transporters. Dangers not just for the public, but for you. Safety starts before you ever get on the road. There are so many things to think about, so much to take into consideration. Checking the rear seat belts, for instance, and the child seats if they're fitted. It's all important, but none more than the basic tool of the trade, the winch and its cable. A badly wound cable may not unwind when you need it. And a badly maintained cable can be a menace. Cables could be stretched. Or maybe the core strand is broken. Maybe there's a kink in it. Or it's got broken strands. It could be chafed or rusty. Even a good cable is a danger in the hands of untrained operators. And you can say that about any piece of equipment.
Dave, watch out, it's gonna go!
If the cable's overloaded, it can still break. You need to calculate carefully whether it's strong enough to do the job, and for that you need proper training. If there's any doubt, use a snatch block to lessen the load on the cable. It means taking the slope and the rolling resistance into account. If the car's wheels are damaged, well, that creates even more resistance. You need training to calculate just how much pulling power is necessary. But remember, even though the load on the cables will be reduced, the load on the pulling points will always stay the same. But whatever method you use, the first thing to do is to assess the situation. With a transporter, you can use a snatch block to pull at an angle, so you don't have to block 2 lanes of the road. But always think it through. Every time you make a move, there's several tons of metal involved. So think carefully about the position of the passengers. Where are they? Remember, they're under your control and they're your responsibility. Thinking it through isn't an optional extra, it's a necessity. You might say that was just a combination of circumstances, but once the passengers are in a safe place, checking the towing eye for rust would have been a good first step. Using a safety connection might add a few extra moments to doing the job, but do you want an accident on your conscience? Partial application of the handbrake is an added safety feature. Your aim is to minimize risk and maximize safety. With a spectacle lift, the techniques are different, but the principles are the same. But sometimes you might not realize what's going on behind you. Other problems can become very obvious. Some cars pose special problems. You could be called out to a vehicle with small diameter wheels. Or it might be a Citroën with its suspension down, a car with a tow hook that threatens to drag on the ground, or a sports model with a low front spoiler. You still need to overcome the situation and tow it safely. If the pivot pin of the spectacle frame is worn, the car could simply roll off the frame as you start to lift it. And at the same time as you overcome the technical problems, you have to carry on thinking about your own safety and the safety of your passengers. If the frame isn't horizontal, you'll twist the body of the car as you tow it, and your load will be unstable. You must strap down both sides securely. Incidentally, the Department of Transport has long been concerned about hard shoulder accidents, and now all hard shoulders will be protected by Vibraline. Straps can work loose after a few miles as the tyres settle into the frame. They may need to be tightened, especially if the tyres are muddy, wet or icy. Road humps are becoming very common, but when you go over a road hump, the lift arm can bottom out. And on a humpback bridge, the tail of the car can drag on the ground. In a hollow, the wheel frame or the car's wheels can hit the ground. It's all too easy to get caught out. Are you sure the handbrake's on, the straps are tightening up, the winch cable is secured? And at the end of your journey there are still hazards, especially if you're unloading on a slope. The principle is that you should have two restraints on the car for as long as possible. So first, make sure the handbrake is on and hook up the winch cable before you take off the straps. Then when you have to take off the handbrake to get the car out of the frame, well, it's still being held by the winch cable. It's the belt and braces approach. Finally, of course, always leave the vehicle parked with the handbrake on. Never be tempted to cut corners. Because if you are tempted to cut corners, someone could pay a heavy penalty. Safety isn't an optional extra. It has to be a state of mind.
No! Watch out!
As we said at the start of the programme, you can never be too safe out there. Now, up to now, we've concentrated on the mechanical dangers of recovery work. But there are other dangers, for example, hazardous chemicals. It's your job to ensure your own safety and be aware of the regulations. Less obvious hazards include rubber compounds that turn into very powerful acid in burnt-out vehicles. You should always wear gloves and protective clothing. Airbags and seatbelt tensioners that don't go off in an accident. There's a small chance they could still go off, and if that happens, you don't want to be in the way. And increasingly, there's the danger of HIV and hepatitis B, both transmitted through body fluids. All searches of cars should be done with gloves. If you're a professional, you'll see countless accidents in the course of your career, but you won't have caused them. Life on the edge is dangerous enough without making it more dangerous than you have to. Let's go back to the start of this program. Now, the truck you saw was doing just 28 miles an hour. Let's see what happened to the recovery operator.